efforts have been on since 2015, as he has recounted, and that I think that this is in recognition of not only the international instruments such as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the International Covenant on Political and Human Rights. The Commission is also bound by the provisions of the Constitution and the Electoral Act. And I think in very clear terms, all of these have made it incumbent upon the Commission to create conditions necessary for inmates to participate in the political and electoral processes of their country. And the efforts that have been recounted, clearly demonstrate this commitment. But there are also encumbrances, that need to be clearly identified and addressed, in order to ensure that the last issues surrounding the rights of inmates to vote are cleared, so that we can move ahead. I think if we put efforts, if we put heads together, if we clear these encumbrances, I can see clearly that by 2027 we can move towards having prisoners vote, in elections. So what are these encumbrances? I think the first for me is the overall legal context. I think the legal context needs to be addressed by the National Assembly. Although the Constitution has not prevented anybody from voting, and in fact enjoins the Commission and other related bodies to ensure that prisoners vote, to ensure that everybody votes, the law needs to define who, even among the prisoners, is eligible to vote, what classifications of prisoners do we have, what kinds of rights do we accord to each, prisoners on condemned prisoners allowed to vote, and so on. These are philosophical and legal issues that the National Assembly has to address before we can move forward, in this. And I think this is very critical, because right now there's a process, on for constitutional and electoral reform. So I think this is the right time, to put these questions and to put these issues on the table so that they can be effectively addressed. I think the second issue, beside this broad, large philosophical issue dealing with the criminal justice system generally, beside this one, there's a lower legal issue that needs to be addressed, and which is the second point I want to raise about the Electoral Act. The representative of the chairman of House Committee on Electoral and Political Matters has hinted, about the provision in the Electoral Act which says where voters will vote where they are registered. And I think this is something that we need to address also in the amendment, if we are moving towards amendment. Because right now, when inmates, are incarcerated, some of them may have been registered in totally different places from where they are incarcerated. And so, unless, that element about where we are registered, that we have to vote where we are registered, unless we find, a way of dealing with it, I think it will be difficult, to address the question of inmates' voting rights. So we need to address that. The third issue, in my opinion, that we need to address are operational issues, that will derive from the first two, which is that once the overall legal, philosophical and legal issues at the top, are addressed by the National Assembly, once the Electoral Act has been amended to allow for voting wherever you find yourself, then the third element would be for the Commission to create the operational guidelines to effect, voting in the prisons or in correctional centers. As let me apologize to our colleagues from correctional centers because they have totally stopped using that term, and I won't use it again. So it's correctional centers. So once those two issues are addressed legally, then that paves the way for the Commission to now generate guidelines and regulations consistent with the broad electoral framework to allow inmates in correctional centers to exercise their civic rights and responsibilities. What do we need to do in order to move forward? I think the Commission is very soon, and within this year, within the second or third quarter of this year, is contemplating reopening the registration, broad registration of voters. So these amendments, these issues, these legal issues, have to be resolved before this registration, because the impediment we faced in 2015 and 2019 is that the registration, the process of registration had already been concluded before we reached, some of the important developments that we reached. It is not possible to reopen registration since registration is governed by law. So if it is said, for example, you need to certify a register of voters 30 or 60 days before an election, we need to deal with this long before we come to that stage, so that we will allow inmates, in correctional centers to register, so that the Commission can generate procedures for this registration, so that we can send staff to go to these centers to go and conduct registration. I think it's also important for the correctional services to provide a comprehensive data on the correctional centers, on the inmates in the centers, on possibly facilities that might be available. This is something that we can jointly do, but it is absolutely critical to provide data, about people in the centers, in the correctional centers, about facilities available, about spaces that can be used for electoral activities such as registration centers or RAC centers and so on, or polling units. We need to all organize that long before the election, and I think this is absolutely critical. The executive director of this organization has already mentioned that there is a framework, on the table that needs revalidation. I think we need to quickly move towards revalidating that framework to incorporate some of the suggestions that may be raised at this forum, into that framework, and to represent that framework for revalidation so that we can move forward in this. I don't want to take too long to talk. Sometimes when you give all the professors microphones, you will spend a long time here listening to them. So let me stop here and wish you all the best. Thank you.